everybody here tonight. My name is Sonny McGee. I'm a representative with the police jury, represent some of the people in this room. We've got several other people from the jury in this room. Would they please stand? Michael in the back, Ronald in the back. I'm not loud enough. All right, anyway, we encourage everybody to ask plenty of questions, but we're going to ask for that at the end of the meeting. This is not a debate to figure out if this is good or bad. It's an educational thing for you people to learn as much as you can so you understand exactly what's fixing to happen in your backyard. So with that said, I'd like to ask the veterans in the room to stand up. Please give them a round of applause. Thank them for their service. Okay. With that, I'm going to ask Colonel Mark to come up and start with the pledge.
Stand with me as we honor our flag, our nation, and our veterans. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Boo, would you come and lead us in a prayer?
Heavenly Father, I'm just thankful, Lord, for you for being such a loving, kind, and merciful God. Father, I ask that you guide us through this storm, Father. The things that come against us, a lot of us are not educated about. I ask you open our minds and our hearts. I ask that you open the minds and hearts of those who are trying to do this. If it's wrong, Father, that you put a stop to it. Bless us, O Lord. Watch over us and guide us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, thank y'all very much. I'm Mike Slocum. I'm one of the co-founders of Save My Louisiana, and Robert Bumax is the other one. And we have our team here too that I want to thank that's traveling across the state. You can see some of our speakers are some of our team members across, and we're doing our best to get the information out to the public to let them decide what's happening to our state, what is carbon capture sequestration, which I didn't know nothing about 5 months ago. Nothing, zero. It's like we found out 15 seconds into the ball game, to the end of the ball game. So we've been in this thing 15 seconds and the game is almost over. But I think that you'll see some things turn and change as we start moving forward with this. So we're going to have our speakers. They're going to be held down for 10 minutes. Some of our speakers are held up in the traffic. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I see Gary May here. We're going to be talking.
Greatly that you come here to hear what we have to say, and most greatly that you come here to hear what we have to say, and most importantly, it is about you and what happens to your lives and your future. We're all talking about our land, our water, and our future. And so we want you to hear what we have to say about all that kind of stuff. The primary thing that I'm going to be talking about is your land. That ground under your feet, and also all of the stuff beneath the ground. So surface and subsurface. And specifically what I want to talk to you about is what the legislature has done to us in the last few years in terms of how they have abrogated or changed what the Constitution, the Louisiana Constitution, allows for us in property rights. So I want to start with walking back through how in the world is a government created. Governments are created, as all of you know, by the will of the people. And who are those people? You are. You're it. And when you decide that you want to create a government, you constitute a government. You write a document, and that document organizes what that government's going to look like. The executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. Not only does it organize that government, it gives it power, it grants it power, and it also restricts the power. So be clear, the Constitution is the foundation on which government sits on top. The government is not the Constitution. The Constitution is not the government. The Constitution is the will of the people. and it creates the authority for the government to have power. Why do we do it this way? So that you are always in control of your government. That's the intent. That's how we do business in the West when it comes to governments. Now, when that Constitution was created, it was very clear in our preamble. What does it say? The preamble of the Constitution of Louisiana. We, the people of Louisiana, desiring to protect individual rights to life, liberty, and property, do ordain and establish this Constitution. And on top of that, in Article 1, Section 1, we even described what the purpose of this government was going to be. The origin and the purpose of government. Article 1, Section 1. All government of right originates with the people, is founded on their will alone, and is instituted to protect the rights of the individual. Its only legitimate ends is to protect the rights of the people. These rights are enumerated in this article. They are inalienable, and they must be protected by the state, inviolate of the state. What does that mean? Inalienable means you cannot be separated from these rights of life, liberty, and property. It's integral. You can't be separated. And on top of that, the Constitution tells the government that you will not only preserve these rights, you will not allow them to be violated. You will hold them inviolate by the state. That's pretty clear to me what the Constitution, what our forefathers thought about how important property was and how we should protect it. Why do you think that property is so important? Why would we talk about property in such great and grandiose ways? Why would it be among life, liberty? Why would it be there? Because for you to own your own property creates independence on your part. When you own property, you are independent, and the government cannot simply roll over you. And so we knew that when we created this government. Life, liberty, and property will be protected because it's essential to not only your independence, but it is how you carry your generational wealth forward from you to your children, to your grandchildren, to the children you've never even met who are going to come along one of these days. That's how we pass along our generational wealth. That's why it was so important. So here's a good question. Can your rights be taken away? It's a trick question. Can your rights be taken away? Yes. Yes, they can. But how can they be taken away? According to the Constitution. By due process of law. And that due process of law is that first foundation of law, which is the Constitution. And let me tell you, when it comes to property rights, our Constitution in Louisiana is actually really good. It starts out, and there's this whole list in Article 1, Section 4. I encourage you to go read it. It's not that complicated. Go read it and see what it says. It is line by line by line of what you can do if you're going to take away that property. That there is a due process that has to take place. That in order for your property to be taken, that the government has to decide that it is a public purpose and that it is necessary. In addition to that, when it comes to public purpose, what is a public purpose? It's a use for a utility, like a road, a bridge, a electric line. These are things that all of us can use. That's why it's called a public utility. It can be utilized by all of us. And if that's the case, the Constitution allows for property to be taken. But it says, but it has to be necessary. And what does it mean by necessary? If a pipeline needs to go through somewhere and they only need 25 feet, they can't take 50. They can only take 25. And if they do go through the entire process of due process of law, when you get to the end of all of that, guess who gets to decide whether it's a public purpose, according to the Constitution? The judicial branch, not the legislative branch. A jury of your peers gets to decide how much you're going to get compensated. And that compensation is supposed to be full compensation of your loss, not equitable. Full compensation of your loss. So our Constitution is really, really tight when it comes to taking away your property, the steps that have to be taken before it can actually be taken away from you. It's a good Constitution. On top of that, the Constitution also, in Article 13, Section 12, restricts the legislature from making special laws. So the legislature cannot come along and make a special law granting Mark the ability to take your property for whatever purpose that I want to. Can't do it. It's very clear. And yet our legislature has come along and decided that if you're involved in carbon capture and sequestration, that industry, that you have a special privilege, it even uses the term, a special privilege, and authorize the right, the power of eminent domain and expropriation. That is a direct violation of the Constitution, not only in Article 1, Section 4, but it also violates Article 13, Section 7, Section 12. It's a clear violation. So how did they do this? Back in 2020, the legislature, in working with industry, decided that they were going to start abrogating or changing your right to property and allowing companies, if they were involved in carbon capture and sequestration, that if they determined that they needed your land for a pipeline, or they needed your subsurface to pump CO2 in the ground, or they needed your surface property in order to build a storage facility, that they could decide to take it. This is a significant problem. And guess what? I'm sorry to say, but your legislators, if they've been in office since 2020, they voted for all 6 of these bills. I know they like to say, well, we made a mistake and we're going to try to correct it. That's a really big mistake when you take away the property rights of 4.5 million people. That's not a common mistake. And if you're going to fix it, the only way that is acceptable to you fix that is an absolutely repeal of Act 61, which took place in 2020, which gave these companies the right to take away your property. That has to change. Not going to stand. So what are we doing about it? Save My Louisiana is an organization that's involved in stopping this through the legal process. We can petition our government in several different ways. This organization has been to the governor's office. We've talked to legislators. We've talked to police jurors. We have petitioned our government. That's executive and legislative. And now we are going to petition the judicial branch. And very soon, we're going to drop a lawsuit on the state that is requiring the court, the judicial branch, to take a look at these laws and to declare them unconstitutional. And we believe, we are certain that we're going to win. It's pretty obvious. The words on the page are clear, both in what the Constitution says and what is now in the revised statute of Title 19 and also Title 30. 19 is about expropriation. Title 30 is about the sequestration and CO2. And in Title 30, 1108 specifically talks about eminent domain being used. Some will tell you that eminent domain is not a problem. They've taken care of it. Well, I encourage you to go take a look at the website, the Louisiana Legislative website yourself. Look at the revised statutes, Title 19, Title 30, and 1108, and it's still there. Carbon capture, sequestration industry has been authorized the power of eminent domain for anything involved in carbon capture, transport, and storage. So it's still there. We've got to get it changed. So we're going to challenge petition the government through a lawsuit. That's what a lawsuit is called, a petition, and go straight and have the courts take a look at it. And if we're successful, which we think we will, we're going to have these laws overturned, declared unconstitutional, and it pulls out the foundational piece that this industry has in order to take away your land.
Thank you, Mark. On your questions, he'll be here to answer anything after 2 also. We always stay around late because it gets deep with the lawsuit. Our next speaker is John Weston. He's a scientist. He's going to come up and talk to you about the permitting and get into that. Our geologist, we don't know what happened to him. He's not here yet. We hope he can make it, but John's going to get into some of his stuff. So, good evening.
All right, there's a little bit about me. I'm from Vernon Parish, Central Louisiana. Spent my first 20 years, age 19, joined the Army, infantry. Served 20 years in the infantry. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Environmental Management. It's basically not a biology degree or chemical engineering or anything, nothing like that. It's holistic everything, wetlands to waste, water, and everything. And then I've got about 13 years of applied experience at the state and federal level. As I mentioned, I really get into the permits because that's where things are said and documented. So that's really what our focus. I pulled up 2 permits that are on the short list, if you will, that was referenced in the 45-day moratorium. But there were 6 that were prioritized. I will speak about 2 of those that are specifically down here in this location, one of them being Goose Lake. Next slide. Before I get to some of this general information, I'm not going to talk about climate change. You believe it, you don't believe it, it's up to you. It really don't matter. If you're interested in it, this book right here called Unsettled by Stephen Coonan probably lays it out the best I've ever seen from both sides. So if you're interested, just take a I got it on Amazon. Really good book. So where are we at? EPA in 2014. So when they started this stuff in 2009, we had to determine how are we going to manage this. It's not a liquid, it's not a gas, it's a supercritical gel-like stuff, so it doesn't meet the definition of waste. So the EPA went through a 3-year rulemaking. It started in 2011 with a preliminary rule, and then finished in 2014 with a final ruling. And in that final ruling, there were 2 things that really jumped out at me in the 18 or 20 pages. Number 1 is it is considered a waste. Right? It is not a commodity. It is not for sale. It is a waste. What they did is they conditionally exclude it from hazardous waste requirements. Conditionally means there are things that the source of the CO2 has to do. There are things that the injector has to do. There are things that the state has to do. And if it's interstate, which we'll get here in a minute, if it's interstate, it's coming from Texas, from Iowa, from Illinois, wherever, well, those states have to do it, and every state in between the state of Louisiana, if that is the final destination, they also have to do certain things. It's a supercritical phase. Once again, it's like a gel, right? It's not gas, it's not liquid, it's under high pressure. It's got to be treated to be able to move. So you're talking anywhere between probably 1,800 and 2,200 PSI moving through these pipelines to the injection sites. Current status, where are we at in the state of Louisiana, right? 33 applications, 1 approved. That was the Hackberry well, Hackberry sequestration. That was the most recent one, the only one that's been approved. 104 wells. About 50% of those are going in the Chico Aquifer, folks, right through it. It's the Chico, right? If you lay it out on a map and start plugging these things in there, because the Chico, it serves, and Mike will get into this a little more, but it serves 15 parishes. All are in part of the groundwater. It provides about 50% of the state's groundwater, not the region, the state's groundwater. When you compare the status there, right, at the EPA level, because not every state has primacy like the state of Louisiana does, so they're looking at these projects in 14 different states across the United States other than the ones with primacy, which there's 5 currently. If you look at those numbers, at the EPA level, there's 65 applications. Right around 250 wells. So about half of what they're doing in 14 states, folks, they're trying to shove into 18 parishes, right? That's relative speaking right there. Right? Department of Conservation and Energy used to be Department of Natural Resources and Energy. They've managed injection wells across the state for decades, right? And we know what's out there. Thousands and thousands of abandoned wells that, serve as a pathway to the surface, right? If they're not properly treated, plugged and abandoned to accommodate for this type of activity. Just me personally, I see it, and I question whether I trust them to manage this one on top. Lastly, this happened in another parish, and we had a police jury meeting last night up in Vernon Parish where we addressed it as well. Right. So what DNR is doing is they're going to ask the local police jury, the local governing authority, if they want to have their public hearings in their parish or if they want to have these in Baton Rouge. It's happened before where the police, that parish president has sent a note back to DNR and said, let's have it in Baton Rouge. That's taken away your right. That makes it harder for you to voice your opinion, go to your public comment periods, and different things like that. So just make sure your police jury knows that you're really wanting them to go ahead and have that public hearing here. Let's go ahead and go to the good stuff. Wow, that looks really weird. I'm going to mess up the name, Minerva, right? So this project right here, according to the permit application page, this one has 4 wells on there that are programmed. The permit only covers 2. So it looks like in the permit they're only trying to permit 2 of the 4 that are actually being cited in the website for DNR. That's just the locations. Let's show what it looks like, right? So this is where it looks like. So just to the east there, you got the Black Bayou Salt Dome, about 2.5 miles away. Both injection wells are pretty close, co-located. The little BH, that's the bottom of the hole. Those are all about 2.5 miles away from the Black Bayou Salt Dome. When we get to the next one, whoops, that's okay. So when it comes to the waste part, I'm trying to go fast because I'm limited to 10 minutes here. It's not carbon dioxide only, folks. It's from a scientific and an engineering standpoint, when you're pulling these type of things off of an industrial process, it is literally 100% impossible to say it's going to be 100% pure, right? I've had to correct DNR 3 different times at public hearings on that fact. That is the proposed waste stream inside these permits. It is the same waste stream for both. It's going to look, it looks to me like an LNG type thing, but when we look at the permit, we're not just talking about stuff possibly here in Cameron or Calcasieu in these areas, right? It does reference possibly going over across the border into Texas with the Beaumont Industrial Corridor as well. So pulling in, that's where that interstate process comes in. Now Texas is on the verge of getting primacy too, so that may not happen. They may just keep it over there in Texas. I don't know, but just letting you know, the permit does not just say everything inside Cameron, Calcasieu Parish. It does talk about interstate transportation of CO2 here. The company Gulf GCS was established in 2000. All this stuff is straight out of the permit, folks. And what I will say about these 2 permits, they're relatively clean. What we're dealing with up in Vernon is about 50% of the permit is actually redacted where we can't see what's in them, right? So these are pretty clean. They're planning on this one going for 30 years, approximately 20 million metric tons over the 30 years. And then, once again, it says, it looks like that there are only 2 of the 4 wells are being permitted. But that the next to last bullet jumped that at me because it's talking about the existing infrastructure to transport it. I know that the Green Line has had some issues in the past, coming out of Texas across all the way to Mississippi. If that's the existing infrastructure, I'm not so sure. All right, next slide. This is the Goose Lake one. It's going to be just to the north up in Calcasieu. Go. So there's Black Lake right there, just off the edge of their area of review, which is where the plume area is supposed to be contained in. This one had 2 wells applied for. Both are being permitted inside this permit activity. Next. As you see, same exact waste stream. Nothing changed there. Go. This one, from a science standpoint, this one really interests me, right? And there's a bunch of different monitoring like borehole pressure and all these other things, right? But when it comes to the waste characterization, that waste stream, right? They say they're going to sample and test that every quarter, 4 times a year. So they tested it in January. They're not going to test it again until April and then again until July. So 4 times a year. And then the groundwater monitoring, they're going to do it once a quarter for 3 years. Remember, they're going for 30 years here, folks. First 3 years, they're going to do quarterly. And then they're going to do it once a year to check to make sure everything's okay after that. So 27 years out of that 30, they're going to check your groundwater 1 time. Let's see, pretty much the same here. This is Goose Lake. 30 million metric tons over, but this one's only for 15 years. So the other one's for 30 years, this one's for 15. A little bit of a difference. And both are permitted. Okay, next. All right. Hey, I know that was down and dirty and fast. On the geology part, there's a lot of different pathways, right? You've got natural faults, you've got old casings, you've got old abandoned orphaned wells, you've got different things that could pop up. According to the requirement, DNR is supposed to require an aerial survey with some magnet detectors, metal detector, to make sure everything's okay and everything like that. But it's not 100%, right? Remember, this stuff is stored under immense amounts of pressure, right? It's transported at pressure, it's stored under pressure, it's in a supercritical phase. If it loses or if it starts to move through those geological areas and it starts to lose some of that pressure, that's going to increase its ability to change from a supercritical phase, gel-like substance, all the way through that process to a gaseous phase. And when it comes out a hole, it ain't going to be like a leak. It'll be a little different. If people want to know how they can do things, I'll leave these at the back. I don't think I have enough for everybody that's here. If you want to ask questions to DNR, general questions, Patrick Kurgis, you can email him. His email information's everything right here. IMD division, if you have project-specific stuff, it's on here. There's a little bit about the U.S. Forest Service. We're dealing with that up there in the northern area. They're pending a final ruling allowing this to happen on our national forests in the state of Louisiana as well. And then lastly, there's a handout here, front and back, on how to actually go through and find out step by step how to submit comments if you have comments on these things once the public hearings start. And with that, I'll turn it over, Mike.
Thank you, John. Boo, you want to come up? We also have, for backup, just in case Brad don't make it here, we do have him on video. If we have enough time, we'll play the geologist for 10 minutes. So go ahead, Boo.
Hello, I'm Robert Maddox. Some of y'all may recognize me. I own Hahn Roofing Company. I've done a lot of work from here back to Lake Charles to Alexandria. You know, I got involved like Mike. Me and Mike learned about the same time about 5 months ago about this. And when we started contacting people, talking about how we didn't want it in our area, because I am a landowner, I am very concerned. Rapides Parish has 2 projects. I didn't understand everything like a lot of people don't. But what I did come to learn that it's serious, and it does worry me because there is not a science to back it up. But when I called some of the staff of Governor Landry and I asked, they said, people want this. I said, who wants it? Cameron Parish wants it. Cameron Parish wants this. I said, and what I learned is it's what they say everywhere. They go in, they capture our economic development and our Chamber of Commerce's. They dangle that carrot in front of their noses. They're going to give some money. It's going to bring money. They don't talk about the safety concerns, but they tell you guys that we want it and us that you want it, and they play us against one another. That's what I see. You know, so we had to come up with something. There's a lot of people that made different organizations that are challenging the CO2. We thought we needed to create an organization to pull those organizations together, but not just those organizations, but the people of Louisiana. That's where we come up with Save My Louisiana. And it isn't ours, it's everyone's. This organization is representing you. We started seeking out an attorney and how we were going to fight this. And I can promise you, me and Mike may try and some of these other people to fund it, but we can't. We are fighting giants. And without the people coming together and everybody donating to Save My Louisiana, or whoever else is fighting this that you feel you need to donate to, it is a fight. And if the fight is nothing else to make sure that we're protecting our families, protecting our land, that we're at least considered in the process. We haven't been considered. This thing was backdoored. Are we going to let them do this, or are we going to stand against them? I want to ask one simple question real quick. I want to ask, based on what you've learned before you even come here, how many of you people are opposed to this? And if you are, I want you to raise your hands and hold them up. If you're opposed to this, raise your hands and hold them up. This is the point that we've made in every meeting. The majority of people have raised their hands. And I tell you, this is about us. Mark said it. The Colonel Guillory said it. He said, you know, we have a Constitution that's supposed to protect us, and these people are supposed to be representing us. I don't think we got representation, and I think it's going to be our voices that they need to hear. We've got to get louder. If we don't do something about this, I'm telling you, we're going to be guilty on laying this on our children's laps. Because I don't believe, from what I've learned, that it's if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. I believe that you put it down there, it's going to be problems. They put out all these false rumors. I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. I think this is going to be something that Americans meet in the center aisle. Our legislators may never meet in the center aisle, but most all of us can meet in the center aisle on this to say we don't want it. So I'm asking y'all to get loud. I'm asking you to contact people, call people, tell your neighbors, tell your friends. We got to wake people up because we're not going to stop this without it. And it ain't impossible. They want to paint us as left-wing activists. That's fine. They can do whatever they want to try to do. I've seen every walk of life involved in this, and none of them are extremists. They're people that are truly concerned about a better, keeping our Louisiana, a safe, a beautiful, good Louisiana, one that we can fish in and hunt in and enjoy our families and make our livings. That's all they want. We want what's best for everybody, not to pad their pocketbooks. And that's all they're going to do. So I'm asking y'all to get fired up, get involved. Let's do this. We can't do it by ourselves. None of us are paid. None of us have a game. We just want to make this a better place for everybody. So please help join us. Thank you so much. Save my Louisiana.
Okay, our next speaker is another scientist, Mike Nichols. I want to say this about Robert and me, and you know, Roland out of Allen Parish, Vernon Parish jumped in this. Rapides came in next, but we didn't know nothing 5 months ago. Zero, nothing. When I called my legislator, I said, what about this carbon capture stuff? He said, it ain't nothing to concern you. That's what you elected me for. I said, we're going to get a well? No, you're not going to get a well. We did a DNR request. Guess how many wells we're going to get? How many wells, Robert? 12 in Rapides Parish. Okay, so there was the problem right there. That's when we started off saying, we don't trust you none. And then as we got into this, we started finding out who was behind it. I mentioned the governor. We met with the governor. He said, if you don't want it, you're not going to get it. I don't believe that one bit. I told Mr. Landry that to his face. I said, what are you trying to say to us? He said, I don't want to turn you into California. I said, you're turning us into California. What do you mean? I said, where did this come from? California. What is this? It's about saving the earth. I said, saving the earth, so you take it upon yourself to save the earth by letting these companies do this. We're not against industry. We like our industry. They provide great jobs. We're 100% behind industry. So all that line that you hear about us is not true. We are for industry. But they cross the line when they try to sequester. You know, who in their right mind thinks of that crap? It's paid for by our tax credits, but yet we got these people that we support. We support industry. But you're going to come and you're going to say, well, we're going to take your good natural gas and send it over. We have no problem. It's sold overseas. That's great. All that stuff's good. But yet, here comes the bad stuff. But the good stuff goes out, and then here comes the bad stuff. Nobody else wants this in the country. It's been opened up to us. Now, bam, here comes the carbon straight in under our feet. It's unproven science. What you hear coming out is not true. And I want to say this to you, and Robert didn't go into this about these commercials with Donald Trump and President Trump behind it. Wait till you find out who's really behind it. We've done some great research, and we got some research teams. Wait till you hear some of our research people. We know who's behind it. We know who it goes to, what attorneys that done it with the LLCs. It's really easy to check, you know. And so that's some things that brought me into this. I didn't like it. You know, we support industry, the forestry industries. We want all that that's a good thing. But the carbon sequestration is just gone too far. So it's paid for by the 45Q. Where's Mike at? Yeah, Mike Nichols. He's a scientist.
Thank you, Mike. That'll switch them?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thank you to all the veterans. I recently participated in the moving wall and escorting it to Kinder. My grandfather was a World War I veteran, and you know I was raised with that mentality. And also, we have a lot of veterans in our family. But thank y'all very much for your service to our country. But I have 40 years experience in natural resources conservation, a proud cowpoke, 1987, my wife and I. So I'm at home here, folks. But I want to tell you, I spent the 80s and the 90s here, and I saw more cars on 27 tonight than I did those 20 years. Okay, we saw during COVID, folks, that, you know, our government Give me more money, and we solve any problem. Give me all your tax dollars. You heard Mike talk about the 45Q. We're paying for this. And unfortunately, sometimes I think that we're using our tax dollars to pay for our own demise. This is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. None of us are paid. None of us are lobbyists. We're here because it's the right thing to do. We want to inform the public. Like I say, I've been doing this for 40 years. I get up every day to protect our natural resources. Just like the refuge here, Sabine. I studied under Walters. He was there 30 years as the manager of the refuge. So how are we going to like it if they come in here? Think about this, folks. The refuge is 125,000 acres, and they pump CO2 under the entire refuge. Do you see what I'm talking about, folks? There's a lot of risk involved with this. These injection zones are huge as far as the build out of these things. But the one on the end there, he named me Sabi. That's short for Chemo Sabi, Trusted Scout. So that's why I'm here, folks. If you hear otherwise, it's just not true. CO2 is plant food. We're breathing CO2 right now, everybody in the room. We locked the doors and we made it airtight and we stayed in here long enough. You know, I don't know how long it would take, a year, 2 years. I guess we'd all die from lack of oxygen. But CO2 is a very minute part of the atmosphere. One of the things that I wanted to point out is this 72% oxygen too. So we're using our tax dollars, folks, in this scam to pump 72% oxygen in the ground. But here's something too. There's this thing called carbon dioxide splitting. Scientists are doing it, and that's the direction we need to go. Let's think about doing things a better way and using our tax money for a more effective method. It's called carbon dioxide splitting. And the reason we're not using it, yeah, right, because they can't skim our tax dollars off of that procedure. They haven't figured out a way to do it yet. But I'd a whole lot rather see it going to something like that than injecting carbon dioxide, which is 72% oxygen, beneath our feet. And you heard what John said. There's all kind of other possible contaminants in there. I just want to show you real quickly. He mentioned climate change. I'm not here to debate climate change. As a scientist, you're arrogant if you don't consider all the facts and all the points. You could say that the planet's warming up. I'm not going to argue with you. Maybe it is. What's causing it? Is CO2 causing it? There's a lot of scientists who think that volcanic activity contributes as much CO2 as we do. So you could go on and on with these arguments, folks, about whether it's really causing climate change and we're going to stop the planet from warming up 3 or 4 degrees. I don't even think that's a practical discussion as a scientist or just a layperson. Let's get into the good, bad, and the ugly. You know, look, I'm not against CO2. I'm telling you right now, if we didn't have carbon dioxide, we wouldn't have Grandma's homemade yeast rows on Sunday. So look, folks, I'm not against CO2. It's had a lot of useful purposes. They use it to pump it in greenhouses. They use it to in medical field. It's what's in fire extinguishers that puts the fires out. Imagine that. Takes all the oxygen out of the air. That's how it extinguishes the fire. You're going to see this theme, and you're going to hear this theme a lot. This was a clandestine approach. They did not have stakeholder meetings. They didn't get our input. Someone like myself with 40 years experience, and there's a lot of other people like that needed to have input on this process. But it came, I'm going to tell you where it came from, and I'm not going to get into this too much, but John Bell Edwards met with President Biden, and they decided to do this. Okay, folks, that's the skinny of it. Now, the problem is, why are we allowing it to happen? That's the next question I have as a conservative, because it's a waste of tax dollars. We got 100 people that die in the workplace every year from breathing concentrated carbon dioxide, not carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. If you concentrate carbon dioxide, it's a threat to our health, and it can kill you. You heard John mention supercritical fluid. This is why it becomes so dangerous. You have to pressurize this stuff at least to 1,400 PSI, and you heard John say 2,000, 2,200 PSI in the pipelines. So how much is it going to take to pump it in the ground? Anytime that you start asking these questions, you get in, oh, it's trade secrets. It's trade secrets. They won't show you what they're talking about with these test wells, with these stratigraphic test wells. So they drill down 12,000, 13,000 feet. I guess that was my sign to shut up, huh? That's happened before, by the way, but, you know, my wife usually turns me off, shuts me up. But anyways, you know, you get these high pressures and you got a dangerous situation. Anybody's been around the industry, you know, they know that the more you increase the pressures, the more likely something is to go wrong. So how much does it take to pump at 5,000 feet in the ground? 3,000 PSI, 4,000 PSI. You guys in the business, y'all know what I'm talking about. That's fracking level. And you're creating a real dangerous situation. Okay, this stuff from the emissions, we get into a whole nother ball game. You got a big witch's brew. You got carbon dioxide, but you could also have sulfur dioxide. You could have hydrogen sulfide. There's all kind of stuff that could be involved in this, y'all. Not just carbon dioxide. It's not a pure stream of carbon dioxide. In the industry, you industry guys and gals know it's sweet corrosion and sour corrosion. That's no secret. My first job out of high school was a welder's helper on pipeline down in New Iberia. My son works here for the plants in sulfur. You know, they look at the welds. They x-ray the welds. And y'all know in the profession, they're jokingly referred to as the unemployment people. But, you know, because if you can't do a good weld on this stuff, you're not coming out of trade school and welding on this high pressure stuff. We all know that. That's another thing they're not telling the truth about, these people who are promoting this in the CCS industry. But if you get a whiff of hydrogen sulfide, you all know you ain't going to have to worry about the carbon dioxide because you're going to be dead. And that's just a fact of it all. What's happened so far? They closed the school down in East Texas for carbon dioxide, not carbon monoxide. I called over there and tried to get the facts because that's all I'm interested in. I want to know what caused it. Was it just a random event? I was just curious. Crickets wouldn't discuss it with me. But we do know. And I talked to the fire department, I talked to the politicos, I talked to everybody over there. So I don't know where the CO2 came from, but they definitely shut the school down over there for a day because the carbon dioxide was too high in the school. But what happened in Midwest Wyoming is it was closed to benzene level from enhanced oil recovery now, not just pumping this in the ground. Enhanced oil recovery is dangerous too. So we need to have a discussion about that. There's been incidents in Louisiana. Up in northeast Louisiana, around Delhi. But anyways, they had to close their school down for a year because the benzene levels, this carcinogen, was 200 times the safe limit. So you get into a lot of other things just beside carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide in itself, if it's not concentrated, is not necessarily a bad thing. This proposed build out of the pipelines, when you look at it, you talk about 90,000 miles of CO2 transport line. Where are they going to go? 545,000 acres of land. Okay, that's not including the access and the temporary workspaces, which all of us in the industry that's been around pipeline, like I said, I was a welder's helper on pipeline. I have 3 natural gas pipelines on my property in Pickett. Okay, it requires an open space to build a pipeline. And you have to have these workspaces, these temporary workspaces. So you're looking at a lot of forest land being cleared. You're looking at a lot of wetlands being destroyed. And none of that's being talked about with this build out. We're going to lose a lot of habitat, folks. What about the water? The water, okay, the water, the Chico Aquifer. You can't emphasize it enough. Who on earth picks the recharge area for the Chico Aquifer to do this? That's just, who asked us? Who asked, is this a good place to do it? Because I just said, no, it's not a good place to do it. You know, you don't risk our groundwater. It's too important. That's scientists from all across the world that agree with me on that. Not just the scientists in Pitkin, Louisiana, y'all. There's people from all over the world that study this and look at this, and they're concerned about the risk. There's many, many unanswered questions. You see that blue area up there, the light blue, is the recharge area. That's where most of the injection wells are planned, unfortunately. What about pH? When you get into that recharge area, you get a lower pH. Oh, somebody wants to talk. Okay, is that right there? You get a lower pH, and it's around, let's say, 6.5. Well, that's leaning toward a lower, more of an acidic level. So when you start pumping this stuff in the ground, and if it when it leaks and it mixes with the water, you're going to drop your pH to an acidic level. Okay? And what's going to happen? What's it going to do to our health? My wife has 40 years experience in the medical field. She's Dr. Linda Nichols. She's the nursing coordinator for Fort Polk there at Northwestern State University. But anyways, we talked about this. We talked about how it might impact our health. There's going to be a physiological response in our bodies from drinking acid water. So if that doesn't kill us, okay, if it doesn't make us sick and kill us, we don't know what it's going to do, because right now our water's good, our pH is good. You know, what's going to happen in the long run? What if that water, what if CO2 forms carbonic acid and it leaches the heavy metals out? Then we're done, folks. We're finished. This is in Aliso Canyon. This is the biggest natural gas leak in the world. Well, why would you talk about natural gas, Mike? Because this is the only thing we have to compare it to is our natural gas storage sites. And not the salt domes. They're not talking about putting this stuff in the salt domes. They're talking about putting it down in the ground in formations that just goes on forever. They're wide open. We'll talk more about that. But look, they had to evacuate thousands of people. And there's today, this was 10 years ago, they're still having impacts from this gas leak. It went on for months before they could stop it. You're not going to stop the CO2 leak. Once it starts blowing out like this, you see the natural gas going up into the air. CO2 is 1.5 times heavier than air. It's coming to the ground, it's forming a death cloud, and your vehicles are not going to run. They evacuated 8,000 people, and now they found there's health risks from that leak, the scientists, increased risk of low birth weights, and also there's been numerous other disasters of gas leaks in the United States where lots of businesses have been blown up, and it's traveled for 8 and 9 miles, the natural gas, just like the CO2 would do, but the CO2 is going to be much more pressurized, and it even killed people, unfortunately, you know, when we've had these blowouts with natural gas. Okay, in Montana, they had planned 100,000 acres of us. Well, it was even more than that. I think it was over 100,000 acres of the injection site. Those big ranchers said, nope, not doing it. They scaled it back to 2,500 acres and one test well, one class 5 stratigraphic well. So to say that people are welcoming this with open arms across the nation is not true. South Dakota passed legislation, no eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. They had 80 pending lawsuits against the landowners. I'm talking, they was wanting to build pipelines catty-cornered across the property, all kind of nonsense for this CO2 gold rush. And those landowners all got together, and it took them 4 or 5 years, but they eliminated those representatives. They replaced them. And of course, now they have a law signed by the governor that says you cannot use eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. In the industry, they started crying. They was wailing, oh, y'all against the industry. And the governor told them, Governor Larry Roden said, no, we're not against the industry. You did this to yourself. You lost the trust of the people. Now it's up to you to gain it back. So I think we're kind of in that situation here in Louisiana myself. But in Illinois, as a showcase site with ADM, it's leaked twice already. And here we are in Louisiana. They want to turn our state into this disposal site for the United States without going through a scientific process, working with LSU, working with the Department of Agriculture over there, working with the School of Natural Resources, and having independent scientists look at this, y'all, and see what the impacts are. Okay, up there where they were having all this legal trouble with the company, with the landowners, they tried to wear the landowners down. They said, we will force them into submission because the lawsuits will break them. That's a quote. That's in quotation marks, folks. Don't think they ain't going to try to do that with us, because it's exactly what they're going to try to do. Real quickly on one of the concerns that we have is increasing the LNG exports, doubling. They want to double the LNG exports, y'all. And I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I think that may be a little bit too much, because that's part of the problem is they want to wrap this, just ratchet this up so quick, and they want to get that CO2 out of that natural gas, and they need a place to put it. So what we're saying is well, we'll put it here. We'll pay for it with our tax dollars. Let Europe take the CO2 out. Whatever country wants it. Put it in a boat right beside the LNG and ship it to them. And we know what they're going to do. They're going to open the valve, turn it loose. And here we are, a bunch of dummies in the United States paying $85 a ton to ship it over there. And I think that's just crazy, y'all. It's not. And another problem I have with it is that's our wealth. That wealth belongs to Louisiana, and that wealth belongs to the District 4. We should be Dubai. We should be that wealthy. We're allowing these companies from out of state and foreign companies to take our wealth. Half the ownership in the Haynesville Shale is now by foreign companies. Japanese just bought a big interest in the Haynesville Shale. That's something that needs to be looked into by the taxpayers. If you look at the risk involved with this stuff, there's an Oxford report says it could be highly economically damaging. And what they're saying is we're going down a dead-end road. That even if this is a really good thing to do, it's only temporary. We're going to have temporary benefits, and then we're going to crash because we put all our eggs in that basket. And then at Stanford, the Institute for the Environment, that's a well-recognized university for studying this kind of stuff. They say that carbon capture could generate more environmental damage than they prevent, which is what I believe. I think because it takes so much energy, think about it, to pump a ton of CO2 or a ton of emissions 100 miles and inject it 5 miles in the ground. Think about how much energy that's going to take. And we actually did the calculation on it, and you release 1.5 tons of CO2 to store 1 ton of CO2 in the ground. We did the calculations, folks, and industry has yet to refute me. The CCS industry has yet to stand up here and refute me because I think the number's higher than that. It's probably more like 2 to 1. So isn't that a circular thing that we're paying for as taxpayers? If you look at where it's been done in the Norwegian Sea, they put it 100 miles from anybody, okay? And this plume in that site over there from the Norwegian Sea, the Sleipner site, it's moving 3 times faster than they thought it would and they predicted it would, and it's about to make its way back into the gas plate, which is where they're taking it out, trying to get rid of it, pumping it back in their site. But they did that over there to avoid carbon tax, okay? All right, I'm not going to get into that tonight because there's not enough time. I'll answer questions about it. But look, that's what they're trying to do to us, folks. They're trying to get us this carbon tax. You got people in the Senate talking about nonsense like that. And that's something we need to be woke to. We need to wake up, folks, because they're doing it in Europe already. But they did this site over at Sleipner. Okay, they built this site to avoid the carbon tax. That's why they're doing it. And look, we remember today from our grandpa and grandma is none of this would be happening. I wouldn't be standing up in this microphone. Somebody'd be getting a boot, and they'd be running them out of here. I'm not so sure we don't need to use that method again. But look, in closing, y'all, I've never been in political office. Okay, never thought about being in political office. I retired 40 years service with USDA, NRCS, Soil Conservation Service I started, managing Sabine, managing Sabine, the Cameron Creole Watershed. I trained under Rockefeller Refuge, under Joe Hannon, Larry McNeese. So I've been here my whole life, and look, I wish y'all would check me out, see what you think. I think I have the common sense to run Congress a lot better than it's being run and take care of some of these issues that I'm standing up here and talking to you about, because we do not have representation at the federal level right now. The only federal guy that looked out for us was Clay Higgins, and I'm going to give him credit because he did, but none of the rest of them in Louisiana stood up for us, none of our senators or none of our congressional leaders. But if you have any questions, I'll be around. Mike Nichols, the right Mike for the job, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Now we have Gary Musgrove. Gary? We're almost to the end. We're going to run a little 5-minute tape after that, and then the rest of the time is for questions.
Turn the lights back on. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Gary Musgrove, and I'm just a citizen of Rapides Parish. I retired from the military about 10 years ago. I spent 23 years in the Air Force. Well, my hat's off to my veterans. It's Veterans Day. Thank you for your service to our country. Why did I get involved in this? How did I get involved in this? I'm not an activist. I'm not into civic service. But what I did is I listened to a talk on social media regarding carbon capture and sequestration. And so I did a little research. And it didn't take me but just a little bit of time to realize this is a scam. And it's at the expense of our children. So I did a little studying, researching on my own. And if we can all at one time take a deep breath, exhale. We just breathe in carbon dioxide. We exhale carbon dioxide. If you don't know, the atmosphere right now makes up only 0.04% carbon dioxide. And man's contribution is only 10% of that. So we're not going to get into the climate change. I personally think it's a hoax, and I personally think this is a scam on the taxpayers of this country, especially in Louisiana, where they're going to take 45Q tax credits at our expense. So these companies are going to come in, dangle the carrot in front of you, especially in front of the police juries and the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to talk about economic development. We're going to throw out these jobs. We're going to say so many jobs, economic development, and guess what? We're going to pump carbon dioxide under your ground. We're going to put toxic carbon dioxide on your ground. And I say toxic, I say carbon. That's not toxic. We're breathing it, right? We'll compress it into a gel form. When it explodes out that gas, out that pipeline, and if you've worked around CO2, it's probably the most dangerous of the elements to be working with on a rig. It's a negative 100 degrees when it comes out. It flash freezes everything. Then it turns to carbonic acid when it comes into water. Drops the pH, just like Mike says. And so what I want you to burn into your mind's eye is this right here. This is the Chico Aquifer. And I tell you what, industry, if they're here tonight, you have to explain to us why you want to pump carbon dioxide under our groundwater. And I don't care what geologist says, what they say about our formation. This is the best formation in America, they say right here. This is it. We got the rock. We can hold it. We can hold 40% of the nation's carbon dioxide. And that's what they want to bring in here. So we have 2 wells approved here down in Hackberry. Raise your hands if you've already signed the contract on your land, your pore space. Is anybody? Well, don't. Because you know what's going to come with your land? A certificate. When you get ready to sell. You know what that certificate's going to say? Your land is toxic. Now try to sell it. And if they tell you anything different, I'm here to tell you they're wrong. Now you have a waste dump underneath your land. We have a waste dump underneath our water aquifer. I'm from Forest Hill. I'm your neighbor up the road. I grow plants. A lot of us do. We're dependent on the water. All of us are dependent on this water. Is it worth the risk for them to get wealthy on 45Q? And I say them, I'm talking about industry. Guys, do you really care what Europe is demanding of us in America? You can speak.
No.
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 If Europe wants low carbon natural gas, do it over there. We'll sell it to you, but you go do it over there. But no, industry wants the 45Q. They want to make billions. This is $1 trillion monetized new way of making money for industry. That's all it is.
That's why they have CO2 ships being made.
Well, sure.
Ship it to us.
Ship it over there. But this is now monetized at our expense, and we're paying for it. So, folks, I want you to know that this is worth more than any amount of money that they can make to us. This is our future. This is our land. This is our water. You screw this up, where are we going to go? A 15-minute city? Look at that. I mean, I don't want to get into the conspiracy of this. Why would you want to do this? Louisiana, we are nothing on the global scale. Do you really think for a moment they care about us? They want to turn Louisiana into an industrial complex and run us out. Now, on the flip side of that, am I against industry? No. Am I against LNG? No. Am I against any of the manufacturing plants that want to come in? No. It's what we live for. I mean, it's our economy, but not at our expense. And I'm not an activist. I am not what's the word I'm looking for? Tree hugger. I'm not a tree hugger. But there's nothing wrong with tree huggers. We need trees, right?
That's my job.
That's your job.
That's my job.
So why are we doing this? Why have we driven all the way down here to talk to you? Number one, we're asked to. Number two, because we want to. We see what industry's doing. We see what the police juries are being forced to make decisions based on this industry. When they dangle the carrot of, hey, $10 million a year. Well, listen, this injection site, I think it's 15 to 20,000 acre plume, just one of these injection wells. If it's, let's go with the max they can do. With 40. Some of these wells are 40,000 acre injection plumes. But if we just go back down to the 20, that one well is projected to make $400 million in 1 year. So what's $10 million? It's a carrot. Here, police jury, $10 million. $400 million on one injection well annually. We're talking about $1 trillion industry at our expense. We say no. That's why we're here, to help you say no, to educate you. Don't take our word. Do what I did. I was where you were sitting 6 months ago. Not a clue. I just sat down. I went to the Pineville High School auditorium. They had a CCS meeting, but guess what? It wasn't this kind of meeting. It was a meeting where the LSU cheerleading squad, head by Dr. Greg Upton, and all the geologists and the scientists at LSU, they came and talked to us about how good it is. You see here, they showed us something like this. All right, but what they didn't show us is all the faults in this geology. Over 400,000 wells in Louisiana. We're a pincushion. So start injecting CO2 into the ground, what's going to happen? It's going to find its way up. And then what? Go back to the water aquifer. pH drops, we got nothing. And so these guys are going around the state. The governor's sending them around. Because why? He is committed to taking on the nation's carbon dioxide. We are the new carbon gold rush, Louisiana. Bring it on. Bring all the companies here. Guess what? There's no companies right now injecting anything. And they're still selling LNG.
And there's no health effects.
None.
It's going in the air.
Going in there.
And it's not hurting anybody. No
Yes,
health
sir.
effects.
So we're here to say, please join us in the fight. We're recruiting. Just where I was sitting, where you were sitting, you can be here. You can help us get around the state. 14 parishes we got to reach. 14 parishes we got to reach. All right, we got to reach Livingston all the way up here. They're even putting one up in Caddo Parish. They're working their way up all over the state, guys. The governor's committed to it. He put a moratorium. We had a meeting with him 2.5 hours on September 10th. Said, give me 30 days. He put a moratorium. Did y'all read the moratorium? It's a joke. It was written for industry, or maybe by industry.
Yes.
And all it did was suspended all operations temporarily for future permits. We still have 33 applications with 104 wells pending. It didn't stop that, guys. That's still coming. Because the proof's in the pudding, it didn't stop anything because Hackberry just got its first Class 6 injection well approved. They signed it off. So all these companies that's coming, the governor's walked out on a limb. It's about to break. He can't come back. What's he going to do? We got Hyundai, low carbon steel. We got the ammonia plants. We're at the LNG, Woodside here. I believe one of them just got stopped by one of the LNGs just got shut down the permitting process by the judge. Commonwealth, yes, sir, that's it. So there's some advances. I mean, like I said, we're not against it. They can do this. They can produce our LNG. They can sell it. You just don't have to capture the carbon. You don't need to stick it under our ground. Like someone said, put it on a boat, send it out to the Gulf. It's not dangerous, but it is when you put it under that ground and you compress it. So that's why we're here. We have a table here. More information, SaveMyLouisiana.org. We are in the process, as the Colonel said, about to file lawsuit to reverse the legislation that was passed in 2020. This isn't cheap. Like I said, I'm retired. All these guys are retired. I mean, they're still just tired. You know what I mean? We're just tired. But this isn't cheap. It costs money to do these things. So go on to SaveMyLouisiana.org. Help us out. If you can spread the word, share the post, donate funds, help us fight it. We're in this together. I drove from Forest Hill here tonight because I want you to know I'm in the same boat with you. They're about to drop wells up there, and they're about to start injecting. We're fighting a company up there in our parish called SunGas Beaver Lake Renewables, where they want to turn. Listen, I'm not against the company. Its business model on its own. It's a good. If they want to take and make biofuel, marine grade biofuel, go ahead. But their business model is to capture carbon and inject it in our ground. Just not, no. We say no. So anyhow, thank y'all. We're going to start the questions now, I believe. Are we at the end, Robert? Mike?
Well, Roland wants to say just a few words.
Oh.
Robert's going to hand it out. We're going to do a little 5-minute.
Good deal.
Let him ask you questions.
Okay. And this is Mr. Roland Hollins. Y'all know him? Well, he's police juryman from Island Parish. He's the guy that started this stuff. I mean, started the fight for you and for me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out, because I'm going to tell you something. In my view, I'm not saying not in our history, but in our lifetime, we haven't been faced with a serious situation with this much risk and for our families and for our future generations. Look, let me just say this. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the bills that we tried to get passed. Whenever I was a police chairman from 96 to 2012, never had intentions of ever going back to the jury until I work in the oil field. I love our industry. So, but when I found out about this in our parish, our people in our parish didn't even know it. We already had a 5-class well drilled, and our people didn't even know it. We was excited because we thought it might be oil and gas. So when I realized our people did not even know, I knew I had to get out and try to inform the public, because this steam engine was already at 100 miles an hour on top of us, and nobody knew it. Well, so I run again. I went to trying to learn as much as I could about it, because I didn't want to be the one to hurt industry. I didn't want to be the one to hurt poor parishes. So I really did a lot of digging. I talked to a lot of my engineering friends and different ones that work in the industry. We all felt the same way. It's too much risk for the value, or it could be a very bad thing. So we had to try to address it. So when I got on the police jury, we put together the Louisiana CO2 Alliance. It was made up of Island Parish Police Jury, Jeff Davis, Vernon, and Beauregard. We tried to get other parishes to join us because we knew it was very important, because what we was told, there's nothing you can do about it. It's coming and there's nothing you can do about it. So in that mindset, and I was thinking, well, if we can't do nothing about it, we better try to get some bills passed to protect our people and our future. So we put together a bunch of bills. We got in behind a bunch of legislatures with about 10 bills. The first bill was House Bill 4, which would allow Cameron Parish to vote on it, up or down, all 64 parishes. It's the right thing. Let me tell you something. What's the difference of force? Whenever the Democrats during COVID, they forced masks, they forced vaccines, and they forced church doors closed. And then our Republicans got on Fox News and jumped on them for forcing that on us. But now our own side is forcing CCS on our communities, and we can't even get our own side to let the people decide. We fought hard for that bill. We couldn't get it. We fought to insure the water systems. We wanted insurance on our water system. We couldn't get it. We wanted landowners compensated for their lost minerals, because if that plume gets under your property, it strands your minerals. We couldn't get it. We tried to get the $5 million liability caps removed. What if we have a $20 million, $50 million problem? The state's held themselves harmless. It's left on us. That's why it's so important that we join, people get involved with Save My Louisiana. Because I don't know if there's I don't know if the legislatures are going to hear our voice. I know on September 10th, about 25 of us was in a room in Rapides Parish with the governor. We've been pushing for months to be able to get a seat with him. On that day, we finally did for 2.5 hours. We all had a lot of things to say, and one of the things that I asked him finally was this: Governor, our people don't want it. He said, well, if you don't want it, you're not getting it. So what we did, we come back to the police jury, and we passed a resolution that said, in Allen Parish, we don't want any Class 6 wells, and we sent it to the governor. So has Cameron now, Jeff Davis, Beauregard, Vernon's about to do the same thing. So I encourage, if you know people in other parishes, please get this word out. There's so many people, y'all, that don't know this. But let me say this. God is able. If we ever accept this thing, this is the last thing I'm going to say. If we ever accept, there's nothing you can do about it. We're one step toward communism and dictatorships. Let me tell you something. We have a God, and we got each other. God bless you.
Look, I'm sorry, y'all. When I spoke earlier, I left out something that was very important, and I wanted to share it with you. I ain't on my game tonight, but in the roofing business, I've spent 37 years, 7 months a year, working in Iowa in the Midwest. I want to thank y'all for staying in attendance. It's important. You know, we did come a long way, and we got a lot of stuff to share. We should have one more speaker. We are not going to play Mr. Brad LeBlanc, the geologist video, but me and Mr. Peacher are going to make sure it's on Save My Louisiana site. And I encourage you to watch it because it's really good information when it comes to the science of this. But I want to tell you what I learned in the Midwest. Once I learned about this, I started doing some research. And Iowa and all the Midwest are fighting the same fight we're fighting. The difference in Iowa and us is we own our pore space. Iowa does not own their pore space. Your pore space is where they're going to inject this. It's your property. It's below the aquifer. It's below the cap rock. Now, I started thinking about, I seen a map in Iowa, and the map showed me 2 double 48s coming down on the west side of Iowa, and 3 triple 48s coming down from the east side. And I thought, and they were all coming to Louisiana, right here. And I'm thinking, what are these big pipelines for? Why are they coming here? So I started looking at where they are. Originally we're going was North Dakota, but South Dakota blocked them with eminent domain. The people stood up and the people fought and they stopped it. And I got to looking at what the geological storage capacity was for each state. North Dakota could hold 252 billion metric tons. That's where they were taking it. A second choice for Iowa would have been Illinois. Illinois has the only 2 wells that have currently been sequestered with carbon. Both of those are actively leaking. So the governor placed a moratorium until July of 26 and shut it down. So I'm still saying, well, what is the formation there? They could hold 110 billion tons, metric tons. But I looked at Louisiana. We can hold 8.5 trillion metric tons. And it said Louisiana has the storage capacity to store 40% of the lower 48 CO2. And I believe that's exactly what our governor did. I think he said, bring it on, we'll take it. I'm going to take their pore space, and I'm going to let y'all do what you want with it. That's 800 billion metric tons onshore and 7.7 offshore. We are going to be the nation's dump if we let this go through. You can ride on that. I'm telling you, I believe it's the truth. I want to introduce one of our last speakers here, Mr. Scott Udis. He's with Healthy Gulf. He's done a lot of stuff to save this area, and I'd like to let him speak. He has a video presentation also. Thank you, Scott. Thank y'all. Really appreciate you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the time. Thanks to Save My Louisiana, and please support the effort to protect private property. At Healthy Gulf, we're a 30-year-old environmental organization protecting the public lands and waters. We are the tree huggers. We are climate activists, and CCS is such a scam. Basically, you're gonna pollute more running the pump than you're gonna put under the earth and making things dangerous. So I'll try to go as fast as possible. I'm at the end. But we have a number of projects and pipelines in the Calcasieu-Cameron area. And if we're in Hackberry, the Sempra LNG Hackberry sequestration has been permitted. And what was elevated was Gulf Coast sequestration. And I'm skipping. Which would be it's called the Goose Lake injection, very close to, I think Mr. West said 2.5 miles. And both of these projects were elevated in the governor's order, and it seems like they're too close. What limited information we have is two-dimensional, and I'm not a geologist, I'm a wetland specialist trying to protect the wetlands in these areas. But the area of review for Goose Lake in gray does overlap the maximum plume extent for Hackberry sequestration. So again, not a geologist, these things are happening at depth, maybe they're at different levels, but I asked 2 geologists, like, what the hell? This seems like a no-go. And they said they couldn't review these permits because the Department of Conservation doesn't make the plume data under the earth public. And so that's one thing I might ask. You can ask your police jury, we can ask our state agencies and representatives, make 3-dimensional models of these plumes under the earth public so we can get independent geologic review. All we have are these 2-dimensional maps, but for our area here in Cameron, those 2 things are on top of each other. It seems completely inappropriate to execute both of these high-pressure injection projects in this area. I've been told, there are hundreds and hundreds of idle wells in Hackberry. Again, we're going to need oil workers forever to care for our groundwater. And nowhere does the planet need them more in Louisiana to put hands on steel and fill, these wells in Orange do not produce oil and gas. They do not go into the refinery. It never makes gasoline. They sit there and leak, and they take our fish, and they take our health. And the department has allowed these idle wells to become orphaned. Just this last month, the Louisiana Department of Conservation allowed 157 idle wells to become orphaned. The company wouldn't hire the workers to plug the wells, and now that's our problem. And several of these wells in Plaquemines Parish are leaking explosive gases day in, day out. So again, if someone asks you what the climate solution is, hire oil workers to plug these idle wells before we start messing around and injecting 2,000 pounds beneath the earth. Not going to talk about groundwater, but both the governor and the federal DOT have stressed the importance of local government, police juries, parish councils in creating setbacks, taxes. These are the things that your local government cannot be preempted. This is said by the Department of Transportation in 2023 in response to a lot of pushback in South Dakota, and it was reiterated in the governor's executive order. Certain parishes have beyond, Lincoln County, South Dakota, beyond just saying, we don't want it, and you must consider us strongly. Well, guess what? The state might consider you strongly and still roll over you. The powers of local government for setbacks and for safety. Local government always funds the fire department and our first responders. We need to protect our first responders with funding, material, and just making and not allowing these projects to go forward. Livingston Parish, in addition to passing resolutions against, has also created setback legislation, ordinances. So we have some attorneys. If you need some help with draft legislation, talk to us. Livingston Parish is saying the way. The money for the alerts for an event, the money for safety planning, that all comes out of the local parish budget, and that cannot be preempted. And I think the last thing, it was actually on an earlier slide. One thing the governor's order did, it did prioritize those 2 injection wells in Hackberry sequestration and Goose Lake, so that was unfortunate. The other thing it did was, though, it reinforced the need for pipeline safety. So the other thing tonight I wanted to, the governor's order established that the Louisiana Department of Conservation needs to do a safety plan for 2 miles around the Hackberry sequestration pipeline. This pipeline has been permitted. It got through before these orders, before everything else. But what we haven't seen from the state is dedication to a safety plan, in this 2-mile area. Now, what's frustrating for those of us on the other side of the state in Lake Maurepas, we know people fish in Black Lake, and we're not sure even how you evacuate people in the water if they're recreationally fishing and something happens along this pipeline right away. We need, but the governor has said pipeline safety is important, and you can call Stephen Gimbroni today and demand a safety planning hearing in Cameron Parish for this Hackberry sequestration project. If you drive the road, which everyone does, you need to be aware of where this pipeline is planned to be in place from the LNG out into Black Lake. So, and I meant to have Stephen's phone number up there so you could call it, but talk to me and I'll give it out to you later tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, I want to thank Cindy and her husband. We're going to open this up for questions. Cindy, do you want to do this Torsion, Mississippi tape? Okay, we can put that online. This is going to be a tape where it shows the pipeline exploding in Mississippi. So if they tell you it don't ever happen, it happens. Look at all the industry issues with that safety. I know they do the best they can, but stuff does happen. So we're going to open it up now to some questions. So if you want to stay and ask the question, just make it direct to what you want, and we'll get the panel up to answer them. So do we? Yeah, we have a second mic. And
Keith has it.
okay, Keith has it. Before we do that, I want to thank the volunteers that's with us in our groups and stuff, because they travel miles. We're about 3 hours away. We're traveling all over the state. I want to say thank you to our team members and our people that show up. Thank y'all very much for everything y'all do, because this is tough. Like Roland said, We fell behind Roland. If it wouldn't be for Roland and Mike Nichols and these other people, we would never have gotten involved. And trust me, we're making a big difference. When we get the governor for 2.5 hours, we're making a big difference. When these legislatures signed 22 of them signed a letter to the president asking to stop this mess, we're making a difference. So I want to tell them thank you so much because this is tough. So now we're ready for questions. So who's first? Yes, ma'am.
This is all brand new to me.
He's got a mic for you.
This is all brand new, and I'm wondering if you could explain, I have no idea, I know what you're saying is bad. Where is this stuff coming from when you're talking about LNG? Are they like splitting something and this is a runoff of it?
Who wants it? Mike
Because
Nichols.
honestly, I live in Texas and I came over, one of these pipelines is like a half mile from my house is supposed to come in. So I want to know, I want to understand it now.
Yeah, it can come from the LNG, which is a pure grade, if you will. You know, there's not so much contaminants in there in the contaminant stream versus the smokestack from the plants. And like when I did my slide presentation, you could have all kind of contaminants mixed in with the CO2. So then they have these direct air capture machines. They have one planned around Sulphur, and they have one planned up in North Louisiana. I call them magic fans, okay? They're going to suck all the air out and get the CO2 out of it, which is it's just from the atmosphere. So we're not really worried about that, a contaminant stream there. But when you start bringing it from other places, when you're bringing it from industry, what kind of industry is it? What kind of contaminants is in that waste stream? Those are discussions that we've been trying to have. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, it's pure enough that it won't hurt anything. But if you're going to inject 250 million metric tons of something in the ground and 1% of it's other, what is that other, to answer your question? It could be some bad stuff, and it could accumulate to a very dangerous level. Okay.
Okay, next question.
Keith, right here.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So what are they doing with it right now? It's going in the air.
It's going in the air.
Right,
And-
so why not leave it in the air?
Well,
It's not a problem.
that's right. We agree. But you know what? Let's work on treating it. Let's work on treatment processes and treatment. We have the technology. We have the science. They don't want to spend the money. They don't want to spend the money to clean this stuff. You know what I'm saying? They want to pump it in the ground because it's a lot cheaper to pump it in the ground. We all know that. Yeah, it's cheaper. But look, folks, we've been around long enough. I think all of us realize that we can treat produced water. We can treat these emissions. And let's start looking into it, folks. Let's spend our tax dollars on that instead of pumping it in the ground.
All right, that's right. Next question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask why in particular are they going to put these wells in our area and not put them in Baton Rouge?
Well, that's good. Go ahead, John.
Why don't they put them damn wells in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, so 18 parishes, so basically a third of the state, 18 parishes